War is a nightmare. But war is also an incredible teacher. One of the most impactful lessons that I learned from war was in the city of Ramadi, Iraq, where brutal and determined terrorists ruled the streets with torture and murder. And it was in one neighborhood of that city, during an operation that I was in charge of, when all hell broke loose. The fog of war rolled in, and in that fog of war, through a series of mistakes and human error and poor judgment and Murphy's Law and just plain bad luck, a horrendous firefight broke out. But this firefight, it wasn't between us and the enemy. This firefight, tragically, was between us and us. Friendly forces against friendly forces, the most horrific part of war. And it was reported up the chain of command what had happened, that we had fought and wounded and killed each other. And when we got back to base, there was a message waiting for me from my commanding officer, and they told me to prepare a debrief to explain exactly what had happened on the operation and what had gone wrong. I knew what this meant. It meant that somebody had to be held accountable. There were so many people that I could incriminate with guilt. But for some reason, I just couldn't put my finger on who was at fault and who specifically I should blame for what had happened. And then, when I was about 10 minutes from starting the debrief, that answer came, and it hit me like a slap in the face. And with that knowledge, I walked into the debriefing room with my commanding officer, and the master chief and the investigating officer were sitting there waiting for me, along with the rest of my men. And I stood up before them, and I asked them whose fault was this. War is a nightmare, but war also teaches you about brotherhood. One of my SEALs raised his hand, and he said it was my fault. I didn't keep control of the Iraqi soldiers I was with. And then another SEAL raised his hand and said it was my fault. And then another SEAL raised his hand, and he said, "Boss, this was my fault. I didn't properly identify my target, and I shot and killed that friendly Iraqi soldier." And I said, "No, this wasn't your fault, and it wasn't yours or yours or yours," I said as I pointed to the rest of the SEALs in the room. There was only one person to blame, and that person was me. I am the commander. I am the senior man on the battlefield, and I am responsible for everything that happens. And I will tell you something. It hurt my ego. It hurt my pride to take the blame. But I also knew that to maintain my integrity as a leader and as a man, I had to control my ego so that my ego did not control me. And you know what? I didn't get fired. In fact, my commanding officer, who had expected excuses and finger pointing, when I took responsibility, when I took ownership, he now trusted me even more. So I say, take ownership. Take extreme ownership. Don't make excuses. Don't blame any other person or any other thing. Get control of your ego. Take extreme ownership.